My friend and I trespassed into a strange store. Now I'm being hunted. Let me start by saying I really don't want to be writing this, but I feel that it is necessary for my safety to figure out what's going on. Last week, my friend Daniel, not his real name, and me, John, again, not my real name, decided we were going to try to hide out overnight in the nearby furniture store. In retrospect, it sounds dumb, but we'd seen videos of people doing this on YouTube and had just gotten out of university for the summer and didn't have enough money to do anything more exciting. Now, this furniture store was huge. Think of an IKEA if you've ever been in one. It was the size of a huge warehouse and had 3 stories. Our plan was to stow away under a bed or something until all the employees had left, then just screw around until morning. The store closed at 8 p.m., and we got there at 6 p.m., so we had ample time to find hiding places while there was still enough customers that we wouldn't attract attention from the staff. We went up to the 3rd floor, where there were mostly displays showing all of the furniture laid out in fake rooms. There was all sorts of rooms laid out, but in the center of all of the displays there was a dining room with 4 chairs. One of the chairs had a normal place setting, but the other 3 chairs had plastic plates with cartoon characters on them. When Daniel and I saw this, we took a quick glance at each other before both running to sit in the adult seat before the other. Daniel ran track, so I don't feel too bad to say he beat me. "Sit down, Sonny," Daniel said, sitting in the adult chair with a grin on his face. "Oh, ha, I said. "This probably isn't even meant to be a children's seat. These were probably all adult chairs and they just replaced the ceramic plates with plastic as they broke. You know, because there's only 1 parent and 3 children." "Stop complaining, son," Daniel said in a deep voice. "Shut up," I said, laughing. We got up and continued walking around until 7 p.m. We decided we should probably find our hiding spots. Daniel found a kid's room with a race car bed. "Hell yeah," he yelled out at a volume much too loud for a 20-year-old seeing a race car bed. "Cover me while I hide." He bent down, pretending to look at the price tag while I stood covering him and pretending to take pictures. Once he was under, I began trying to find a place of my own. After looking around, I figured that hiding under a bed was probably my best bet. I picked out a king-size bed that, when I was under, if I looked straight, I could see the dining room in the center and past that, the race car bed. For a little while, me and Daniel played rock, paper, scissors before I got bored and just decided to turn the brightness down on my phone and doom scroll until the store was empty. I was startled when all of a sudden I heard a sharp screech ring through the air. I looked at the time on my phone and it read 8 p.m. I thought it was odd that a store had an alarm that went off at closing time, but it only got stranger. All of the staff began to usher people out. Me and Daniel began exchanging frantic texts before assuring ourselves that it was probably some store policy so they didn't have to pay their employees overtime. By 8:05 p.m., it was dead quiet, and from what I could see, there was nobody left on the 3rd floor. I texted Daniel one last time to tell him that we needed to wait until they turned the lights out before we came out of our hiding spots. My phone then died, a victim of my TikTok addiction. I waited for what felt like 10 to 15 minutes when all of a sudden the metal double doors that led to what I believe was a storage room burst open and a dozen women dressed in formal attire marched out in a single file line. At this, me and Daniel exchanged puzzled glances. Upon further inspection, I noticed each of the women were carrying things in order. The women were carrying a glass bottle of water, a bottle of wine, a basket with napkins and silverware, a candle, some sort of metal figurine that I couldn't make out any details on, a large covered platter, a green folded blanket, a red folded blanket, a blue folded blanket, a 3-foot-tall doll of a girl with red hair, a 3-foot doll of a boy with short blonde hair, and a 3-foot-tall doll of a boy with brown hair. The women set the table with the food and drinks and placed a doll in each of the children's seats. The women worked mechanically, making sure everything was exact and neat. They placed the metal figurine in front of the adult play setting, and the 3 women with the blankets began walking away from the central dining table and moved towards the outer parts of the showroom. The one with the green blanket moved towards a kids' room display to my left, and the one with the red blanket went to a display to my right. The one with the blue blanket walked straight away from me, right towards Daniel. She placed the blanket on the race car bed, and I met eyes with Daniel as she did. His face dropped. The bewilderment on his face was replaced by fear. Almost as quickly as they had appeared, the women retreated back through the double doors as orderly as they came. I was at a complete loss as to what had occurred. It was closing time, so what are they setting up for? And what the hell are the dolls for? Unfortunately, my questions were answered in quick time. A hefty man in a dark red suit emerged from the same doors the women had come from just a moment ago. He walked over to the remaining chair and placed a hand on it. "Hello, children," he said coldly, his words reverberating in the now empty floor. The way he said this sent a shiver down my spine, and I instinctually reached for my phone to record the situation. As I fumbled for my phone, I remembered it had died earlier. I looked over to Daniel and waved my phone towards him. He understood my gesture and began recording with his phone. When I looked back over to the dining room, I saw the man had sat down and began dining with the dolls. He was pouring them water and seemed to be talking to them. Something about this just disgusted me to my core. I retreated further back under the bed until I was pressed up against the wall the headboard was up against. I wanted to get as far away from this man as possible. My decision to hide under a king bed gave me this liberty, but Daniel being under the children's bed had no such luxury. I hid partially curled up against the wall for what felt like at least an hour, listening to the whispered conversation the man was having with himself. From where I was, I couldn't really see the table anymore, but I knew this. Dinner had concluded when I heard a lone chair squeak as it was pushed back. At this, I moved slightly forward so that I once again could see the man. "Time for bed, my lovelies," he said in a soft but disturbing voice. With this, he picked up the blonde-haired doll as if it was a real child and began walking directly away from me. I realized he was walking towards the race car bed and was filled with anxiety that Daniel would be discovered. By the look on Daniel's face, I could tell this anxiety was shared. The man placed the doll on the bed and covered it with the top blanket. He gave the doll an over-exaggerated kiss on the cheek. "I love you." His words made me sick. I watched as Daniel, now shaking, grabbed his phone, and as soon as the man began walking away, Daniel crawled out from under the bed and began a full sprint towards the stairs and towards the exit. As he left, he gave me a quick glance, conveying both the sorrow he felt and the utter fear. The man in the suit froze and began glaring at Daniel with pure hatred. Without any noise or motion from the man, two of the women from earlier hurried out. One had a revolver and the other a shotgun, and they each offered their gun to the man. The man took the revolver and let off one crack shot in the direction of Daniel. The bullet missed and Daniel ran down the stairs. The man handed the revolver back to the woman he had taken it from. The women then returned to the back room. The man continued to tuck in the other dolls, giving them both kisses and saying he loved them. He then walked over to the table, grabbed the metal figurine, and began walking towards the door. He stopped, however, a few feet short. "It's rude to stare, you know," he said loudly. How the hell had he seen me? I knew I had to run. He didn't have the guns with him, and the distance between me and him was greater than it had been with him and Daniel. I crawled out from under the bed and ran as fast as I could, as fast as I ever had. "I think I'll be seeing you for dinner soon," he called out, "and your friend as well." I kept running, expecting a gunshot to ring out, but nothing came. I ran down the stairs and through the front doors. Once I was outside, I didn't stop running. We'd taken an Uber here and I wasn't familiar with the area, so I just kept running down random streets. I eventually got to the local mall and spent the remainder of the night in the food court, charging my phone. As soon as my phone had enough charge to boot up, I tried to call Daniel, but he didn't pick up. I texted him, but there was no reply. I called my parents and they came to get me in the morning. I didn't tell them anything that had happened. I told them I had been at the mall shopping, had gotten a massive headache, and just decided to stay the night there. I've been staying at their place for a few days now. I've texted Daniel and tried to message him on social media, but it looks like he deleted all of his accounts. I thought he probably just was embarrassed by the fact he had abandoned me there until this morning. I woke up and upon checking my phone, I saw a single message from an unknown number. The message contained no text and 2 emojis. the forking plate. I don't feel safe anymore. If they got my number, they somehow know who I am, or they have gotten to Daniel. Both horrific options. I could go to the police, but without the video that Daniel has, my testimony would probably lead to nothing but referrals to a psych ward. Now I'm left with a few questions. Did Daniel escape? If he did, how do they have my number? And most importantly, who the hell is the guy? If it was just him, I could dismiss it as just some freak, but his posse of female servants takes this to a whole other level. Has anyone ever heard of some sort of cult acting like this? Any help navigating this situation would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you for listening and delving into the dark with me. I would be so grateful if you please click the thumbs up, subscribe, and leave me a comment. The more engagement this video gets, the more YouTube will push my content to others, and thus our twisted little community will grow. All stories read on this channel will be available on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and many other podcast apps. Links are in the description. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you.